Ladies and gentlemen, there are some wounds so deep, so painful, that the very thought of forgiveness seems impossible. You have cried, you have prayed, and yet the hurt lingers. The betrayal, the rejection, the words spoken in anger. How can you simply forget? The truth is, you may never forget. The truth is, you may never forget. But you can forgive. My beloved, forgive. Let the healing begin, and watch as God turns your pain into a testimony of His grace. Forgiveness is a choice, not a feeling. Many people believe they must wait until they feel ready to forgive before they can release the pain and move forward. But if we rely on feelings, we may never forgive because emotions are fleeting and unpredictable. True forgiveness is not based on how we feel. It is a deliberate decision, an act of the will rooted in faith and trust in God. It is choosing to let go of the offense, even when every part of us wants to hold on to it. There are times when the hurt runs so deep that we feel justified in carrying the weight of unforgiveness. We replay the offense in our minds over and over again, as if doing so will somehow make it right. But what we do not realize is that unforgiveness becomes a prison, locking us in a cycle of pain and resentment. The person who hurt us may have moved on, unaware of the turmoil within us, yet we remain bound by our unwillingness to release them. It is not about excusing what they did. It is not about pretending it never happened. Forgiveness is about setting ourselves free. When Jesus walked the earth, He demonstrated forgiveness in ways that confounded human understanding. He forgave the very ones who mocked Him, who spat on Him, who nailed Him to a cross. He did not wait for them to apologize. He did not wait for them to acknowledge their wrongdoing. He simply said, "Oh, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do." If Jesus, in the height of His suffering, could forgive those who wronged Him, how much more should we, who have received His mercy, extend that same grace to others? The enemy of our soul wants us to believe that forgiveness is impossible. He whispers lies that say, "It don't deserve it. They don't deserve it. They hurt you too deeply. If you forgive, you are letting them get away with it." But forgiveness is not about the other person. It is about our own hearts. It is about refusing to allow bitterness to take root within us. Bitterness does not harm the one who hurt us. It destroys us from the inside out. It poisons our thoughts, clouds our vision, and robs us of peace. But when we choose to forgive, we are choosing life. We are choosing freedom. Forgiveness is not always instantaneous. Always instantaneous. Sometimes we must forgive again and again, each time the memory resurfaces. We may have to go before God daily and say, "Lord, I choose to forgive. I release this into your hands." And each time we do, we loosen the grip of pain just a little more. Healing comes in the surrender, in the willingness to trust that God sees, God knows, and God will bring justice in His own perfect way. Forgiveness is also an act of faith. When we forgive, we are placing our trust in God's ability to heal and restore. We are believing that His plan for our lives is greater than any offense we have endured. We are declaring that the hurt will not define us, that the past will not control our future. It takes courage to forgive, but when we do, we open the door for God's peace to flood our hearts. Some may say, "But I cannot forget what happened." That is true. Forgiveness does not erase the memory, but it removes the sting. It allows us to remember without reliving the pain. It shifts our focus from the hurt to the healing. It gives us the strength to say, "What was meant for evil, God will use for good." So today, make the choice. Choose to forgive, not because they deserve it, but because you deserve peace. Choose to let go, not because it is easy, but because it is necessary. And as you do, watch how God transforms your heart, fills you with His love, and sets you free from the chains of the past. Unforgiveness is like a heavy chain wrapped around your soul, keeping you bound to the very pain you long to escape. Many people believe that holding on to resentment gives them control, that by refusing to forgive, they are somehow protecting themselves from further harm. But the truth is, unforgiveness is a prison, and the only person it holds captive is you. When someone wrongs us, it is natural to feel hurt, betrayed, or even angry. These emotions in themselves are not sinful. They are a part of the human experience. But what we do with those emotions determines whether we walk in freedom or remain trapped in bitterness. Unforgiveness does not change the past, nor does it bring justice. It only keeps the wound open, preventing healing from taking place. The more we dwell on the offense, the more power it has over us. We relive the pain, replay the words, and re-experience the betrayal as if it just happened. And with each repetition, the chains grow tighter. Many believe that time will heal all wounds, but time alone does not bring healing. Only God does. Time can cause a wound to scab over, but if the root of bitterness remains, it will eventually resurface. That is why some people carry pain for years, even decades, unable to move forward because they have never truly let go. Bitterness does not stay contained. It spreads like a poison, affecting not only our own hearts, but also our relationships with others. It clouds our ability to love, to trust, and to experience joy. The enemy of our soul delights in keeping us trapped in unforgiveness because he knows it, robs us of the abundant life God intends for us. He whispers lies that make us feel justified in our resentment. They don't deserve forgiveness. If you let go, they will never learn their lesson. If you forgive, you are saying what they did was okay. But none of these things are true. Forgiveness is not about justifying the wrong done to us. It is not about excusing the offender. It is about refusing to allow their actions to control our hearts any longer. Jesus spoke of the danger of unforgiveness in powerful terms. He told the parable of a servant who was forgiven a great debt by his master, but then refused to forgive a small debt owed to him by another, to him by another. When the master heard of his lack of mercy, he was thrown into prison until he paid every last cent. Jesus then warned that if we do not forgive others, our Heavenly Father will not forgive us. That is not because God lacks mercy, but because an unforgiving heart is closed off to receiving His grace. Grace. How can we accept the boundless mercy of God if we refuse to extend even a portion of that mercy to others? Forgiveness is the key that unlocks the prison door. It does not mean forgetting or allowing ourselves to be mistreated again. It means releasing the burden into God's hands and trusting Him to bring justice in His perfect way. It means refusing to be defined by the hurt and choosing to walk in the peace that only He can give. Perhaps the hardest part of forgiveness is that it is not always a one-time decision. Sometimes we must forgive again and again, every time the memory resurfaces. But each time we do, the grip of unforgiveness loosens a little more. Eventually, what once felt impossible becomes possible, and the weight that seemed unbearable is lifted. So do not hold on to what is destroying your peace. The pain of the past does not have to dictate your future. You may not be able to change what happened, but you can choose how you respond. And when you choose to forgive, you choose freedom. You choose healing. You choose to step into the life God has called you to live, unshackled and unhindered. Healing comes through surrender. So many people walk through life carrying wounds that no one else can see. Smiling on the outside, but broken within, they hold on to pain, disappointment, and betrayal, hoping that time alone will heal the wounds. But true healing does not come by simply ignoring the pain or suppressing it deep within the heart. Healing begins when we surrender our pain to God. There is something within human nature that resists surrender. We want to fix things ourselves, to take control of our own healing, to find justice in our own way. But the more we try to hold on to the pain, the more it consumes us. Either it turns into bitterness, anger, and resentment, robbing us of peace and joy. We may try to move on, but as long as we carry the weight of unforgiveness and hurt, we remain tethered to the past. Surrender is not about pretending that the pain never happened. It is not about minimizing the hurt or excusing the one who caused it. Surrender is an act of trust. It is saying, God, I give this to you. I give you my broken heart, my questions, my anger, and my sorrow. I trust that you see what I have been through, and I trust that you will bring healing in your perfect way. God never asks us to carry the weight of our own healing. He is the healer. He is the one who restores, who mends the brokenhearted, who bind up wounds that seem beyond repair. But But he cannot heal what we refuse to surrender as long as we hold on to the pain, trying to manage it ourselves. We hinder his work in our lives. It is only when we release it to him that he can truly begin to restore what was lost. Many people fear that if they let go of the pain, they will lose a part of themselves. They believe that holding on to the hurt protects them from being hurt again. But in reality, holding on to the pain only keeps them trapped. Healing does not mean forgetting. It does not mean that what happened was right. It simply means that we are no longer allowing the past to define us. Jesus himself modeled surrender in the Garden of Gethsemane, facing betrayal, rejection, and suffering. He prayed, "Not my will, but yours be done." He surrendered his pain to the Father, and through that surrender, redemption came. If Jesus, in his greatest moment of suffering, could trust the Father, how much more should we? When we surrender, we are not giving up. We are giving over. We are placing our hurt into the hands of the one who can transform it into something beautiful. Healing through surrender does not always happen instantly. Sometimes it is a process. It requires us to go before God daily, to lay down the pain again and again until it no longer holds power over us. But each time we surrender, we take another step toward freedom. We allow God's peace to replace the turmoil, his love to replace the hurt, his strength to replace our weakness. Many people want healing, but few are willing to surrender completely. They give God parts of their heart, but hold on to the areas that hurt the most. But partial surrender leads to partial healing. God wants all of it. He wants every wound, every broken piece, every unspoken sorrow. And when we finally let go, when we place it all in his hands, that is when true healing begins. There is no wound too deep for God to heal, no pain too great for him to restore. He is the God who brings beauty from ashes, who turns mourning into joy, who gives strength to the weary. But we must be willing to trust him. We must be willing to surrender. And when we do, we will find that his healing is deeper, greater, and more powerful than anything we could have imagined. Forgiving doesn't mean forgetting. This is one of the biggest misconceptions about forgiveness. And many people believe that if they forgive, they must also forget what happened, as if the pain and betrayal never existed. But that is not true. Forgiveness is not about erasing the memory of the hurt. It is about changing how we remember it. It is about releasing the resentment, the bitterness, and the need for revenge, even if the memory remains. Some wounds run so deep that they leave scars, and those scars tell a story. They remind us of what we have been through, but they no longer define us. The goal of forgiveness is not to act as if the pain never occurred, but to reach a place where we can remember without reliving the hurt. When we forgive, we take back the power that the past had over us. We no longer allow what happened to dictate our emotions, our actions, or our future. Many people struggle with forgiveness because they feel that letting go means excusing the offense. But forgiveness is not the same as justification. It does not mean that what the other person did was right. It does not mean that there should be no consequences. It does not even mean that we must reconcile with the person who hurt us. Forgiveness is a personal decision to release ourselves from the burden of anger and resentment. Jesus never said, "I'll forgive and forget." Instead, he taught us to forgive as he has forgiven us. That means we forgive with grace, with love, and with a heart that is willing to move forward, even if the memory remains. When Jesus forgave the woman caught in adultery, he did not pretend her past never existed. He acknowledged it, but he freed her from its weight and told her to go and sin no more. That is what forgiveness does. It acknowledges the past but refuses to be enslaved by it. One of the greatest examples of this is found in the life of Joseph. He was betrayed by his own brothers, sold into slavery, falsely accused, and imprisoned. Yet, when he finally stood before the very ones who had wronged him, he did not seek revenge. Instead, he said, "You meant evil against me, but God meant it for good." Joseph did not forget what happened to him. He remembered, but he remembered through the lens of God's purpose. He saw that his pain had been used for something greater. And because of that, he was able to forgive. When we choose to forgive, we are not ignoring what happened. We are not pretending that we were not hurt.
Yeah.
We are simply choosing to no longer let that pain control us. We are choosing to move forward. We are choosing to trust that God will bring justice in His own way and in His own time. Forgiveness is a journey. Some days, some days the pain resurfaces and we may have to forgive again. But each time we choose forgiveness, we loosen the grip that the past has on us. We take another step toward healing, another step toward freedom. The enemy wants us to stay bound by unforgiveness, to keep replaying the offense over and over again. But God wants to set us free. We may never forget the things that hurt us, but we can remember them differently. We can remember them as part of our testimony, as evidence of God's healing power. We can look back and see how He carried us through, how He strengthened us, how He turned our pain into purpose. That is the beauty of forgiveness. It does not erase the past, but it allows us to move beyond it. So do not wait for the memory to fade before you forgive. Do not wait until the pain is completely gone. Make the choice today to forgive, knowing that God will bring healing in His time. The past does not have to hold you captive. Your future is waiting, and it is a future of peace, of freedom, and of victory. My beloved, forgiveness is not an easy path, but it is the only path to true freedom. It is not about waiting until you feel ready, but about making a choice, an intentional decision to release the pain, the resentment, and the burden of the past. Unforgiveness keeps you chained to what has already happened, while forgiveness opens the door to healing, peace, and restoration. You may never forget what was done to you, but you do not have to carry it with you. When you surrender your pain to God, He takes what was meant for harm and turns it into something greater. He brings beauty from ashes. He brings peace in the midst of sorrow, and He brings strength where there was once only weakness. So today, make the choice. Choose to forgive, not because they deserve it, but because you deserve to be free. Choose to let go, not because the pain was small, but because your future is greater than your past. And as you do, watch how God works in your life, healing your heart, restoring your joy, and leading you into the fullness of His grace. Forgive, surrender, walk in freedom, and trust that God will do the rest.